Hey everyone, welcome to our June session of the Volunteer Engagement webinar series. We're super excited to have Corina Sadler back with us for the second time this year. She has such wonderful information. She is a CVA, which we're going to talk about kind of more toward the end of the presentation in my updates as well. She's got some new exciting things happening over in Texas, and she's going to talk to us today about creating our professional brand yesterday. So Corina, thank you so much again for speaking with our group this year. I'm going to turn it over to you, and we just appreciate your time and expertise.
Awesome. Thanks so much for having me, Cindy. Hello, everybody. I'm coming in live right outside of Dallas, Texas. I'm Corina Sadler. I supervise a municipal volunteer program, and I'll tell you a little bit more about me. But first, how are you feeling today? Let's use the chat box. Pick your cat face that best represents how you're doing, and let me know. Oh, I see a 9 coming in from Sydney. We've got a 2, got a 5 from Aaron. Trying to keep my energy. I want to be a strong 8, but it's early over here. A couple of 5s rolling in from Jody. Thank you for participating. Good to see the vibes. What's going on? Again, I'm Corina. So I've been a CVA, so I'm glad to hear you'll be chatting more about what that is for the last 10 years. Again, by day, I lead a volunteer program for local government for the city. And then I've recently been appointed by our governor to serve on the National Service Commission. So that oversees AmeriCorps funding, Volunteer Texas, lots of different things with the One Star Foundation. So I'm super excited to take on that board member role, which is new for me. I also serve with a lot of different associations. I serve with CCVA. I also serve with Alive, the Engaged Journal, and the Texas Volunteer Management Conference. In my experience working with so many different national and global and state associations, is I get to interface a lot with other professionals, right, that do our work, that are in the helping professions, that work in social services or active adult living or nonprofits, local government, faith organizations. I get to see and hear how they represent themselves, their organizations, and their volunteer programs. And then I get to connect and learn from those that really have been honing their brand and working on how they present themselves as a professional doing the work of volunteer engagement. And Susan Ellis, who founded Engage, which used to be e-volunteerism, always said to believe deeply in what you train on. So for me, this is one of my passion subjects. I really love talking about professional branding for leaders of volunteers. What does that mean? Kind of pulling back the curtain to the work that I've done in creating my brand and how it has propelled me to be involved in some great organizations and to be able to meet some really cool people. Oh, I forgot. I did have a poll, but I didn't. We're in Teams here, so it's not loaded. I'm used to being in Zoom. But really quickly in the chat box to get you thinking, is there anything about, what about creating your professional brand interests you the most? Some are just curious. Some have no idea what that means for a professional. Others want to work on some career goals. Some people might want to mirror, right, or be like others in their sector or their industry that they respect, and they want to be able to talk about their work in the same regard. All right, so before I really kind of talk more about brand, I want to ask you 2 questions. If you're brave and you want to enter a response in the chat box, you can do that. Otherwise, we can just talk here. We are a small group. If you did want to unmute at any point during my presentation, we have that option as well. So these 2 questions, I think, really kind of gets our brain going when we're thinking about brand. What do you want other people to know about your career? And then what do you want for yourself? right? As far as your goals, your career experience, do you have things that you're looking to achieve or to earn or to benefit from? Looking ahead and kind of the rest of this year, right? Where are we as in our careers? I started working professionally, 16 years ago, fresh out of college. I landed my first local government job after being a volunteer. I worked in senior recreation um, as a volunteer in high school, then as a part-timer in college. So senior recreation, working with older adults, was my first kind of foray into professional municipal work, something I really loved. I ended up going to college to get my bachelor's in applied gerontology. So, the study of aging, working with seniors, was something that I really gravitated towards, and it led me to volunteerism. But it wasn't until about 2017 that I really stopped and thought of these questions, really from my career experience, right? I realized that it's not really going to be up to my boss or my leadership, right, to make me happy in my role. I really have to take the time to do it myself, to determine going forward, what do I want my career experience to be like? And what are the steps I'm going to take to have me achieve my goals and what I want? Even if I'm happy where I am, and I am, right? I love my current position. So I'm not looking to move, but if I was, I could still apply a lot of these kind of brand strategies that I'm going to talk about. But even if I don't want to go to another organization, to be happy in my job, to feel valued from others, to feel credible, right? That the work that I do and my expertise is lending credibility to my volunteer program. Some that I hear from, I've trained on this branding topic across the country. I've trained hundreds of people who lead volunteers about working on their professional presence, their online presence and brand. Some of them want to be seen as an expert, right? They want people to recognize that they know what they're talking about, that they have the training and the experience, and that they deserve to be at the decision-making table or deserve to be respected as a leader of volunteers. Others tell me that they want to build more trust within their organization, right? Trust for the volunteer program, trust for their position, and to be able to have that trust lift up relationships in the workplace. And still others want people to understand in their workplace what they do for a living, right? What is their job? I think there's a lot of misconceptions because we don't bring in revenue, right? People say that we save money, we don't make money, that somehow it lessens our roles. And even if you don't have fundraising in your organization, there could be something else, right, that you're compared to or that you don't quite fit in with your teams. So that awareness, I think, is a big part of why having a professional brand or working on your career information and how it's perceived by others can be really helpful. Yes, please continue in the chat box. So looking at what you want for yourself, again, I see Sydney seconded the credibility, right? We want to be able to reach a point where we can advocate for ourselves in the workplace. Sometimes we don't have people, right, that understand the world of volunteerism and that will lift us up and propel us forward. A lot of that falls on our shoulders, right, to decide what do we really want? What are we asking for? Because when we advocate for ourselves, it really advocates for everyone, for our volunteers, for the program, for the position of having leader of volunteers. It really lifts all boats. And it's self-advocacy. I see that. I see as brand management as part of your professional duties as that self-advocacy. And sometimes I hear from leaders of volunteers, they want to be more recognized for the work that they do, the work they were trained and educated and they have life experience doing, and just be able to get a little bit more of that awareness and recognition for them. Because we do, as leaders of volunteers, we have incredible skill sets. We have such great people skills and relational abilities. We are incredible at what we do, right? So you're joining an association like this, you're networking, you're leveling up and getting professional development. But where are people seeing these messages about you? Right? How do people in your organization or in the community find out all that you are in your career and as a professional, if that would lead to achieving some of your goals? So how I view working on your professional brand is more of a strategy, right, to achieve goals. And goals for you can be goals that will impact your volunteers and your volunteer program. I've definitely seen that in some of the things that I've been able to check off my goal list. So when I'm talking about brand, we see that in the marketing world, we hear that in business, and sometimes we miss the messages, right? That in nonprofits and social services, we don't deserve some of that, right? That's not for us. People with other types of careers in tech, in finance, and all kinds of other things, media, that they have brands, and that's something that they do with their career, but we don't need that, right, in our sector. I think that's a mistake. I think we lose some of our visibility when we don't have enough people talking about our professions. It can be more specific to what you do in your organization, your title, your cause area. Mine is more of volunteerism and leaders of volunteers. Yours might be very more specific to something else. Whatever words you use, if it's important to you, then it falls in this category. So when I talk about brand, I'm really just talking about your reputation, right? Brand is also another word for trust with the marketplace, right? We have stakeholders that touch the volunteer program. We have so many that are involved in volunteerism that are not involved in other programs or departments in our organization. So your reputation, again, that is more, what do people say or know about you when you're not in the room? Do they know what you do? Are we providing other people, our stakeholders, the vocabulary and the facts of our careers and our roles, right? So where they can lift us up, they can put our name in for something, they can recommend us, they can say, oh, Karina should be involved in this conversation. She leads volunteers. This has something to do with volunteers. We need to bring her in. Or we need Sydney's expertise on this. I have a feeling as we progress, we need to get her involved in this decision. Our reputation, again, what do people know or say about us when we're not around? Are we leaving that vocabulary and facts of what we do so where people understand how we fit into the organization and how they could apply our skills, right, to something that would benefit volunteers or volunteering or ourselves. And having trust really does affect people's behavior. People they gain confidence, they believe in you, they want to support something that they believe in, that they trust, that they connect with. It also affects their view of a leader of volunteers in general, of having a volunteer coordinator, of rehiring, right? When someone leaves, to be able to rehire that same position because of what they've known of that role. So we have a long-lasting effect as in the way that we treat our careers as professionals in the helping professions in general. And I'm really, I try to stick to the facts, right? And we're talking about the facts of your career, the facts of who you are in the workplace, and not, not embellishing, not exaggerating, not flattery or bragging. It's really the facts of who you are, what you do, And all of those things are already there. And so you do have a brand. It's just some people take time to kind of get it organized and kind of water it a little, cultivate it. But all the facts of who you are in the workplace are already there. All those facts will build your reputation, and you can turn that into your brand. And it doesn't mean you're selling anything. You can have a professional brand and not sell anything, right? It's you. You are the product. You are an amazing professional, and you're the whole package. And for people to understand that more, it's really helpful to achieving your goals. All right, so what can working on your reputation or focusing on your brand do? I have found that it really helps me navigate like this digital workplace. During COVID, we were separated from our teams. Sometimes there is this proximity bias that we've heard about now, where people that are physically closer to the boss or to leadership that see them more often, that are non-virtual, might receive more benefit or be regarded higher or have a closer, more trusting relationship. Doesn't always happen, but we are hearing about that in workplaces. So it helps me have the virtual brand, the digital presence, to be able to maintain connections and visibility, not only for my volunteer program, but for me as a professional. So the other thing about that digital workplace, the content that I put out, and we'll talk about LinkedIn as just one example, it's working 24/7. It is there when I'm asleep, early in the morning before I've had coffee. It lives and breathes for me. So it's doing some work on my behalf that I don't have to worry about. And I'll give you some examples of what that is. Especially during a job search as well. So many things are virtual. People are working hybrid. People are looking for remote jobs. The virtual hiring experience has changed, and having an online brand or your professional presence kind of tweaked and really cleaned up can be super helpful in that job search. When I'm looking at applicants, when I hired a volunteer coordinator, I don't know if HR says probably we're not supposed to be Googling or looking, but I think a lot of hiring managers are, especially when they receive a number of applications. So to have some presence or digital presence online is very helpful. For me, it also helps me manage my burnout, right? I'm not going to be able to prevent burning out, but I can manage how that plays into my work life. Again, I've been at my organization a long time. I like my organization, but I don't want to be a hamster on a wheel. I want to be excited and energized, even though I've had longevity here. So working on my brand and having new opportunities and other goals outside of getting a new job really helps me do that, helps me manage that burnout. So when I took control kind of what was happening with my professional presence online, I started with just kind of looking at what's on Google about myself professionally. So I might search Karina Sadler Plano, Karina Sadler volunteering, whatever my kind of cause area is. And I want to be sure that I am vetting what's on Google, right? What is ranking top? What comes up? Is it super old and out of date and doesn't look good and doesn't reflect my current values and who I am as a professional today? If it's not, I want to get those things further down the list or have them removed. So I'm loading up fresh things, new things. LinkedIn, again, a great search thing. LinkedIn tends to come up pretty high on Google as a professional. Again, you have these facts about yourself with your experience, your passions, and you just need to get a hold of it and kind of where it lives online, where it lives in your decision, right, and how you want to have your career experience. And it goes back to just whatever your goals are, right? If you want more visibility at work, if you want people to respect what you do, it takes explaining, it takes examples, it takes people to be connected to you and your story. There's lots of opportunities there. And what I noticed when I started kind of working on this was that professionals in my organization were having discussions online. They're out there, they're on LinkedIn, they're chatting about what they do. And I realized that no one else was talking about volunteerism and service in my organization in these areas. And it became very apparent that there's so much room for discussion, for people to bring in their new voice and bring this topic to the table, and others will join in. Others will see and hear and be interested. I have so many people in my organization that maybe they don't engage volunteers in their department, right? That I haven't reached them yet, but they're interested in what I talk about, in the way that I talk about engagement and volunteerism. So they're going to follow, they're going to read, they're going to be interested and feel like they're making that connection. I took control of most of my Google results, right? Figuring out how I can boost and get some more things out there that have my name on it that I okay and vet, and I want people to see those things and rank higher. So I started just kind of figuring out, how do I talk about my job, right? I don't want to be bragging. I don't want to be fake. I want to be what? How do I decide? So I really looked to my core values. I used those to guide me on the decisions of how do I bring about discussing my role and talking about what I do and all the work that I put in to achieve success in volunteerism. Once I started to figure that out, my organization took notice and listed me as an internal influencer within my organization of 3,000 staff. I was so happy to see not just me, but a leader of volunteers on a list as an influencer for my organization. I just thought that volunteers have a foot in the door, right? The discussion of service is there. That was really, really motivating. And it proved to me that people are looking and listening, even if they're not clicking or calling me on the phone afterwards about a post. People are very nosy and they want to know what's happening. So I mentioned burnout before, but it's been a very challenging time, to say the least, very traumatic. There was a point in the middle of probably the middle of that point of the lockdowns. I was sitting at my kitchen table, pretty devastated, to close the volunteer program. And I really thought, am I going to lose my job? Like, never had that feeling before. And then I also thought, who am I without my volunteers? These pictures from the past, right? That was my big part of my identity, with those faces and those people. So I really felt lost. And I'm really glad I had already started working on my professional brand, because I would say that it saved me my mental health and my burnout, being able to use my presence to give back, right? To connect with organizations like this, to be able to share knowledge, and to know that what happened during the pandemic, and if our titles changed and we lost income and we had to do different job duties, like, it doesn't discount the amazing professional that we are and all that we do have to give. Even if we look different, our jobs look different, we just have to manage, I think, with what happened to us, right? There's a lot of that information out there on how to deal. And I did. I was able to reach out and work through it with managing my brand and the professionals that I had met along the way in this journey. Because when you open yourself up to a community like volunteer engagement, there's so many people out there that want to know what you're doing, that are interested in how volunteerism works and looks at where you are, your mission, just getting great feedback from people. So we hear this phrase a lot in business and in marketing. that people do business with who they know, like, and trust. I'm big on trust. I love reading about trust. But this is not just for business, right? We run, even in nonprofits, that's just their tax status. That's not their business plan, right? We offer services. Some of us do offer goods. Some of us run resale stores, and we operate tutoring centers or whatever it is. We have stakeholders that engage with our brand and who we are, the way that we operate our volunteer programs. And it's a challenge sometimes to maintain all of these connections. But I think, again, a lot of the things that you refine, how you talk about yourself, how you introduce yourself, how you promote the volunteer program gets people moving, right? They feel like they get to know you. They feel like they like you and what you stand for, right? Like-minded people. And eventually that they become able to trust the volunteer program and the way that you operate it or what you do in your position. It helps internally as well to build trust with our internal staff. We need their trust, right? To leverage volunteers, to engage and support and love on our volunteers. We need more people to help us with that. So I really wanted to produce loyalty. I wanted people to trust my knowledge, right? For people to understand that, oh, Karina has a CVA for 10 years. She is an expert in volunteerism at our organization. We should be asking her to be included in these projects that relate to volunteers, that will impact volunteers. It's not perfect. It doesn't always happen the way I want it to happen, but more often now, people have the connection, right? Who I am, knowing more about what I do for my organization with volunteers, and then usually getting on board. Who doesn't like volunteerism? I mean, you think that's an easy sell, but sometimes people just need to understand more, right? They have no connection to volunteering. We sell that to them. So there's internal and external audiences. In my day-to-day, I'm screening volunteers, I'm recruiting volunteers, I coordinate, schedule, interview, place, call back, email. I mean, I do all the things, right? I'm a leader of volunteers. But I don't want my stakeholders to think that's all I can do, that I wouldn't have options to do something else, something more. And my day-to-day job description isn't going to fulfill my career experience every day. I'm looking for more things, right? We need to be more fulfilled. I don't want people to think that that's all that I do. It can be hard in a big organization, and even in a small one, you have to kind of weigh your audience and what you want them to know, what you're missing. Maybe things are going really well, and your goals are beyond your internal audience. You're very appreciated, and you're very supported. So you're really looking to external. So hopefully that's the case, right? And you feel very much credible to your internal audience. Your online presence does affect this. Let's see, where I got lost here. But I think even with our internal audiences, if we have a large organization, it's hard for them to spot us and know us where we are all the time and what we do. So with my direct supervisor, right, I need to communicate my wins. I need to get more buy-in. I want my direct supervisor to understand more of what I do on a day-to-day basis. Oftentimes I hear from leaders of volunteers that their supervisor has no experience in volunteerism and does not understand what they do. So part of what I do with my brand is to prove and explain to my boss what it is that I do all the time. Why am I so busy? And why is it a success? I can't do that in a meeting every single day. So how can I show in other ways? So I talk about brand moments. So the way that we talk about ourselves in the workplace, I think, is super important. The way that we talk about our positions, the way that we talk about our the volunteers of our organization, the volunteer program, engagement in volunteerism in general. I mean, it matters. People will repeat what they hear. So if Sydney runs into me in the hallway and compliments me and says something, and I'm like, oh, I'm just the volunteer coordinator. Okay. Well, tomorrow Sydney might see someone else and say, oh, Karina, oh, she's just the volunteer coordinator. Coming out of someone else's mouth, it sounds even worse, right? So I always support that, and to say we need to elevate the way that we speak about our role, because it can make an impact. I also am big on correcting people if they misrepresent you or the volunteer program, to stop them, right, and redirect them to the correct way to refer to us or our programs. I also encourage people to begin mentioning, right, what you've contributed to a project or program. Again, just the facts. It's not bragging. You are saying what the reality is of what you've contributed and what you've done. So if there's opportunities to claim the work, do that, right? I hear stories of volunteers, leaders, that someone has stolen their work, took credit for their ideas. Okay, how this happened? What can we do going forward? We can begin claiming that, right, of what we've done and contributed, because it's important, and it's the facts of why we are so good at what we do and what we've given, right, to the organization. This last one, I hear a lot of people are, struggling with taking compliments, taking recognition and saying thank you, instead of saying, oh, yeah, that was a really great volunteer event, but this happened and I was so worried about it, and this could have fell apart, and our volunteers were late. And I mean, really, being able to accept appreciation, a compliment, or a thank you, and just take it, I think is a skill that we all should learn, and it's very helpful. They're giving you feedback, right? I think we should take it. Do see a question. Do you recommend we speak in a teamwork framework as well? I'm the director of volunteer engagement. Without the hundreds of local and regional staff, I would not be able to do all that I do. I think it may downplay my part to lift up other staff. That's a great point. I think we all get into that conundrum, right? Because we represent, sometimes it is staff, right? Hundreds of paid staff. Other times we represent hundreds and thousands of volunteers. So what we don't want to do is have our message get lost in the appreciation of volunteers and our staff. We do that. We know that, right? I think some of the things that our teams know already is that we love volunteers and we love our staff, right? That we couldn't do this without them. I think that is common knowledge, and no one thinks that we could do this alone. That's kind of already there. So I think it goes without saying, so that when we talk about the actual facts of what we do, it is not detracting, in my view, detracting from the facts that those amazing hundreds of staff are incredible and they give so much. But at their team meeting, would they bring me up? I don't think so. Are they going to give me a pat on the back? Who are all hundreds of them going to do that? I don't think so. I have my opportunity, right, to represent my stake, my career, and if I have goals, being able to move those goals forward. We might have finite opportunities. We might not have a lot of time with leadership, right? So we have to choose which goals are we moving forward, what's important, and obviously, yeah, the hundreds of staff, yes, of course. Where are we fitting that in? Is for any reason anyone in doubt about that? If not, okay, we've got a finite amount of time to talk about our contributions, what we've done, why it was successful, how it's awesome, what we do all day, also the other things, right? But we need to choose and value that specific time for our goals wisely, in my personal opinion. Okay, so people tell me, Karina, how do you have time? How do you build in time to gather information? You're talking about the facts. How do you get your facts together? How do you do that? Right? So really what I'm collecting, right? My motto, I'm always collecting. If you know me in real life, you would see me taking a picture, writing a note in my phone, taking a screenshot, saving an email. I'm collecting. So I'm really looking at the stories of my career experience. I'm looking at examples of how I've flexed my skills or my expertise. And then I use those stories and facts to apply them to telling my professional story or working on my brand. Again, my personal brand, I'm not a business person. I'm not selling a product. I'm talking about volunteerism. So my influence as I raise it raises the connection to my volunteer program, which impacts the volunteers, which impacts my community and the services that we provide. So it's because this is a professional brand and I'm not on Etsy, I'm not selling other things, I am talking about my career. It's related to me, and I try to lift all boats with the way that I collect information about this. If I don't have an image, I make one. If you look at my Instagram, you'll see I create my own images when I don't want to show a photo of a real person. I'm very conscious of privacy of others, right? This is my story, and I'm not going to assume that other people want to be part of that if I tell it visually. You know, we have to look out for ourselves. I think in this workplace, we want to elevate the way that leaders of volunteers are regarded in their organizations. Because I talk so publicly about my work, I've had other governments contact me saying, okay, we want a person like you to do that work here. For me, that is a huge win to get more leaders of volunteers in government. That's ideal, right? They want to mirror the success that they see for my volunteer program. It's incredible. They have to be able to see it, right? They have to hear about it, to know about it. And definitely within my organization where I started internally, it goes a long way. Because no one else is really going to care about our career success as much as we should. It's not up to them. It's not their career. They have their own to worry about. So I put the pieces together. I use my core values again to decide what I'm collecting. Is it honest? Is it transparent and authentic? I do use humor as one of my core values. As soon as I post funny things, am I being transparent? And then my other core values are influence and leadership. So I kind of use my core values to tell me if I'm on the right track with what I'm sharing. Is it true to who I am? So I'm going to give you some examples here in just a second, but first, how do you feel about LinkedIn? Use the chat box if you would like. All right, Caitlin uses it a lot. I like number 6, Sydney. That's a cute one. So I'm really going to highlight LinkedIn for this. I'll give you a few screenshots of Instagram at the end. But that's like, you know, LinkedIn is a classic professional network. If you're not into social media, no problem. I'm also going to give you some things that do not involve social media, but humor me for LinkedIn for a moment. Okay, so we're going to look at LinkedIn just a second, but I see working on your professional brand, your online presence, if you choose that route, as a way to boost your resume. I have a PDF resume, maybe Karina Sadler 2016.pdf. It's on my desktop. It's sitting there. Maybe I have a hard copy right in my desk drawer behind me. It's not really going anywhere. So I think in the future we're going to see the like PDFs going away with resumes. I think it's going to be a lot more digital. It's hard to glean things right from a resume. I think people are looking at online presences when they're hiring, right? It's comparing people's passions. What are they out there? What are they talking about? Who is this person? Especially if you have 100 applications or 200, it might come down to something that's out there about this person. And it's not going to be the PDF resume, right, that blows them away. Okay, so these are some screenshots I'll show you of my LinkedIn profile. I see LinkedIn as a really powerful professional resource. It can be a set it and forget it kind of place. You don't have to be on there every day. It's not Twitter. It can become your living, breathing digital portfolio. It can really represent you in a really clean, simple, easy to find, free place. So the way that I use LinkedIn, I am talking about my professional passions, right? Showcasing them, why I believe in the CVA, why I believe in volunteerism, why I believe in leaders of volunteers, seeking professional development, joining an association like this. I might choose to promote some causes, right? AmeriCorps service is about to become high on my radar with my National Service Commission appointment. So I'm going to start, right, creating some content and supporting more of AmeriCorps. That'll give me a whole new audience of people that are also interested in that. With internally, I said I'm connected to a high number of people that work in my organization, and then even people that are not connected with me are out there and they view what I put out. I am proving why I am an expert in volunteerism, why I do this work, why they should connect with me and bring me in internally to work on this and volunteer engagement with them. A few things on this page. What I love about LinkedIn, having a photo, having a banner, really helpful. The only money I've ever spent on my online brand is headshots. That came probably 9 years later that you can take awesome pictures with your iPhone. You don't need that. Another thing I love is this audio button. So this has on the app, you can record yourself saying your name. So if you have a more difficult to pronounce name, or everyone always gets your name wrong, you can record yourself. I've used this going into meetings with people, especially nationally. If they have this, I listen to make sure I'm going to say their name correctly. Very helpful. There's a featured area. You can decide what you like featured. So usually I'm highlighting certain things that I'm doing professionally. Sometimes those are usually external, right? Internal, probably not as interesting and exciting, but you have this featured area like carousel. It's all yours. And then the activity one. Other things, oh yeah, I mentioned that, the featured. So recommendations, you can give recommendations. I do this for volunteers. Using your LinkedIn profile, give them a great recommendation, which is awesome. You can also receive recommendations, which are, again, live, living examples of how great you are, and it proves the work that you're doing. And it's not just bullet points at the bottom of your resume that says references available upon request. It's like a real person. So I've been using LinkedIn for about 10 years. I would say the last 5, I've really been working on it. I took an online LinkedIn course to learn more because I don't have my own website. I don't want my own website. It's just too much. I don't have a business necessarily. I do speaking, but for me, LinkedIn is pretty awesome. and it's free. And I do some of that set it and forget it, right? You can just load it up with stuff, and you don't have to check it every single day. I also love that it has volunteer experience. So if you are on a board, local association, if you serve in other ways, it makes it more visible here, and I really like that. If you scroll down, there's some other sections where you can put more things about you, and links and stuff like that. So I actually have a speaker section where I say that I can do this, I can come out and chat, talk about the CVA as well. All right, so if you are on LinkedIn and you want to connect, you can go ahead and drop your profile in the chat at any point. I think we have the ability, I hope, to save the chat. Actually, I'm used to Zoom. I don't know if you can save the chat, but maybe you can copy and paste if you're not already connected with people, but you could drop your LinkedIn. Oh yeah, I like connecting with people as well. I love hearing about what's happening in volunteer engagement across the country. I teach a certificate program as well, separate from my work at the city, and that's typically for leaders of volunteers that have been in their role less than a year. So it's really interesting for me to see and hear what's happening out in the field. All right, so on LinkedIn, what I'm trying to come across to my internal audiences, which would be my fellow colleagues at my organization, I want to remind them that we have a volunteer program, right? We have new hires, we have people that retire, and I want to reach people that geographically I'm not close to, but I want them to know that my program exists so that they can utilize it and come talk to me about volunteering with our organization. I also like to kind of explain what I do, right? To have more people understand, what does a leader of volunteers do? For me, it's more specific to government. Why have volunteer coordinators in government? What could they do? That's part of what I talk about. I also want my internal audiences to see that I'm available to help. I'm a resource. Please, if there's anything related to volunteering, come to me first, please. I hate hearing about things secondhand or after the fact. I want more people to recognize that I'm a resource. So for external audiences, I want them to be able to contact me and feel that I am a neighbor, that I'm in this community with them to talk about volunteering. I also like to give referrals and resources, and I want people to know that it's just a positive place in my volunteer program. As a representative, as the face of the volunteer program, I want them to get that point, right? That we are here. So we want to be ourselves, right? Bringing your whole self to work, being unique, being someone who can stand out, right? We have to be consistent. I think we are consistent in our work, but in this realm of looking at your goals or what you want to achieve or how you want to feel at work, we need to have that consistency. This is part of taking control, right, of our career experience. Again, we don't need to wait for people to give us permission to be excited about our job, to love what we do, or to realize that there is something else for us. And we do have goals outside of what we're doing today. Sometimes it's a realization. I think we've experienced a lot of it during these last couple of years, but we are the people left in this sector, in our field, whatever it is. We owe it to keep the visibility, right? We want more people to join us. We want more people to get their degrees or to volunteer or to have experience that will lead them to where we are. And so being the people left, I just encourage those to set goals, to raise their visibility, to talk more about their role, and to pull back the curtain and get people more excited about supporting us. Okay, so thinking of some things that you can do, I would encourage you to think of maybe 2 things you would like to focus on about your career that are really big parts of your story. If it's internal, it's your work that you do. If it's external, a group you're a part of, or something else that you do as a volunteer, that might be it. You might need help. You could think about what lives between the lines of your resume. Like if you gave me your resume and I say I had a fabulous job for you, you gave me your resume and I'm only going to base my entire decision to hire you on that one resume. Like, what's missing? What is not there? What is there no way I could possibly connect with in that? And then we have to think sometimes, what do we really expect from people related to our jobs? What do we want them to ask of us? Do we want to be invited to the decision-making table? Do we want professional development funds? Do we want access to the CVA exam? Do we want people to ask us to be stronger leaders or to take a mentoring program? That can help formulate some of our goals. What do we want people to ask of us? What do we feel like we're missing? Okay, looking at time. So this question came up in a national networking time, which is, who is your biggest fans? Who are your biggest fans at your organization? In the couple of Zoom rooms I was in, people really didn't have a strong answer. People really didn't know, right? Who really is a big fan of volunteering or of you at your organization? And so I felt like maybe the reason could be because their colleagues are like disconnected from what they do, don't understand the role of having a person over volunteers. How do we change that? We need to, again, increase visibility, be able to have others see and hear about our awesome skills, our abilities, what we do, right? We need to flex those skill sets in a public way sometimes, nurture those relationships, right? To where they feel a connection to who we are and what we do. They begin to respect the role of the leader of volunteers. There are also some in-person things you can do. If you are not, if you don't want to go social and you're more in-person, like social media, get some public speaking training, right? Practice speaking, practice talking about your role, practice introducing yourself to a group, practice explaining your job, right? In a concise, professional, strong way, and be confident to say that you are an awesome XYZ, whatever it is, and you do really well at your skills. You can also get coaching, find a mentor, be a mentor to someone else. If you see someone working on this and you feel like you have some skills you could lend them, continuing to come to this association, all kinds of things. So the interest of time, a little bit more about relationships. I'm actually going to move forward real quick. So, telling your story, it can create excitement from others about our work, right? We need more cheerleaders. We need champions and people that will say, we are pro volunteering here. We support this program. We support this professional. By building that excitement, you create fans of in your network, people who believe in you. And then you can leverage that excitement and those people, right, to showcase that people support you, to kind of build your own network, to lift you up in times, to provide you with resources and support. That's how you create your community of supporters. You have to give them something to latch on to, something to connect to. And they don't have to understand exactly what you do to believe in you. I think sometimes we get hung up on that. They don't really get volunteer engagement. Okay, do they get you? Do they see you and believe in your work? You don't have to understand why we do all policies and procedures and the CCBA core competencies. Like there's more to you than that. So as we wrap up, I encourage you to keep track of who you meet. It's helpful, right, to build those relationships. I encourage you to reclaim your work. If you have done projects and you leave your organization, they could delete those. They could be gone from the website or the shared drive or whatever. I encourage you to reclaim and have copies of anything that you've actually contributed or that you've worked on. Save it in your personal drives for your own portfolio, resume, talking points. And to, again, remind people of what you contribute. It's so important to, for people to know more about you and to be able to speak to your great skills and what you have when you're not there. Some other things, it can help with career stress. It can give you some energizing energy. It can help you be creative. If your job doesn't allow you to be really creative, you can do some creative work here. And it really lifts up our field, the whole field. The more we see people, the more I can identify with them and their struggles. And, someone told me that you can't be what you can't see. If we want more people to enter this sector and to be excited about doing our work when we leave, we need to show them what that looks like, bring them in. Some other things I've done on Instagram, I've had great opportunities of connecting with people, getting recommendations that are beyond my direct supervisor, people feeling a connection, right? Similar passions and interests in volunteering. And then people can follow, right? Can join you in your work, especially if you talk very specifically about a passion in your mission. That's how I've landed nationally training, right? People connect with the topic, find me on social media, and really like some of the way that I talk about leading volunteers as a professional. And I mentioned I would include some things that are not social media. So last thing, you could write for the Engaged Journal about your experience as a leader of volunteers. It's an awesome opportunity. You could have your own website where you share information about what you do. You could have a YouTube channel. You could do a blog, right? Talking at tips, best practices, just pull back the curtain on what you do. You could just start with a Word document and just get down some of your wins. Look at your goals, look at your core values. Decide, do you have things you want to achieve? Or are you in a great place and you want to just manage your happiness and your career experience and just enhance it and make it really a connection for you. Lastly, if you don't advocate for your brand, no one else will. Love to hear more about you, see you online. If you have questions, I am a resource for you. I'm on Instagram and Facebook and LinkedIn. I'm happy to review LinkedIn profiles and give tips for someone that's wanting to enhance theirs. I don't have a business. This is just me as a volunteer engagement pro. So I'm open to questions. Sometimes people don't really have questions about this kind of topic, but if you do, I will stay on and then I'll let Sydney continue with your other content. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much, Karina. So this is definitely a presentation that's a little bit different than what we've had on the series in the past, which is why it really drew to me when you recommended or you sent me this presentation. We usually talk about a lot of ways to recruit, retain, train, all of that good stuff, but this is more kind of a personal presentation. I know I have to work on so many things and I've written down so many notes. I really can't explain to a lot of people what I do, so I definitely need to work on that. Even my dad goes, "What do you do for a living?" And I was like, "That's a great question." So yeah, that's going to be number one on my priority list for sure. Creating my own core values. I love your core values. I don't want to copy literally everything that you do, but you are very worth emulating. And then, of course, the LinkedIn stuff.
Yeah, look up core values. You'll get a huge list and go through them. I would recommend starting with 10. And then when you're working on something, you could pick your top 4 or 5 that are specific to what that is. But I read a book that talked about core values, and I had never done that before. And I feel like it makes me feel like, again, this is not bragging, this is the truth. And I know it is because it speaks to my values.
Absolutely. Kristen, it looks like you have your hand up. So if you want to unmute yourself, your floor is yours.
Thank you. I just first wanted to say this has been really amazingly awesome, and I very much enjoyed it. My chat function is eluding me today, so I apologize for not being able to engage with you during the session, but I've been very much on the edge of my seat. And you said that you read a book about sort of choosing your values. Is that a book you could recommend to us?
Yes. So the one, let me get the title. I've read a few different ones. Let me see if I have it on my phone. I believe, oh, okay. So now there's a book called Brag Better by Meredith Feynman that when I first did this presentation, somebody in the Zoom room told me, Karina, you need to read this book. It's perfect for this. So that's a really, really good one. You can get those usually at your library, called Brag Better. The one that I got that talked about my core values is a small book. It's called Look, Stop Hiding, and it's from Dr. Kristen Guillory. But if you put that look, comma, stop hiding, how to find your voice and never dim your light again. Those two really, really helped me understand and move past some of that kind of being embarrassed or the fact that I do, when I introduce my role, what I do, I really need to have a strong description, really need to be confident and to say, yeah, I'm not just a volunteer coordinator or supervisor. We do so much more, and being prepared, right, to have that. How do I talk about my role across our sector seems to be a challenge. Thank you, Kristen.
Thank you. I've just added both of those to my library request list.
There you go. Awesome.
I tried to type them in the chat, but I might have misspelled some stuff. So.
Nope, that's good.
And thank you, Drew, for putting in the volunteer hours. I can also include that in the follow-up in case anybody needs that information.
Yeah,
as well.
as soon as you have people that are numbers people, and when you're going up against development or philanthropy, and you get the feeling like, I'm not bringing a number to the table. I mean, yeah, you can use that hourly rate. It can be helpful when you're number against number, but then some of the other ways to tell what's happening in the program is worth looking at, right, from your perspective. I have a great phone call with a volunteer. It's like, how do I capture that emotion? How do we capture what just happened to me on the phone, and turn it into a story that explains why me being here to pick up the phone has such an impact on someone in the community?
For sure. And I like, oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say that I find with that volunteer value of an hour, it's two-part. It's why do you need an afternoon to plan a thank you for volunteers? Well, our volunteers just gave us $400 worth of effort for the event. I believe they deserve a bowling party. But then it's also when you're planning an event, being in the field that I'm in, working, because I work at Hands On Nashville, so we work with a lot of partners and see a lot of different volunteer opportunities. But like, when I look at volunteer feedback, it's the little things of like, oh, they bothered to have granola bars and bottles of water. And so when you're planning things, going to your development department and going to your accountant and being like, I need $100 to go to Costco to buy snacks. Well, why? Well, it's $30 a volunteer hour, and we're going to have 20 people for 3 hours. I think you can give me $100 to go buy thank yous because people are going to enjoy it and be happier at the event.
Yeah, that's a great example.
Any other comments, thoughts, advice seeking? I know I am linked with Karina on LinkedIn, and she has an amazing platform to look at and emulate, like I said earlier. So if you don't already or aren't already linked with her, I strongly recommend that. And then I believe Rebecca and I also put our LinkedIns in the chat if anybody wants to connect with us as well, and let us know how we're improving on all the stuff that we're trying to increase on that platform.
That's awesome. And you can also, even on Facebook, obviously Instagram, but on LinkedIn, you can follow people. And if you're not ready to like link in with them, maybe it's some thought leaders you like or people or authors, I mean, you can actually follow profiles without linking in with them. And so I love that. If it's someone I think I know, but I just want to see what's going on, like I might give them a follow and then maybe they'll link in with me back. But there's that also in the platform where you don't feel like nervous, like, oh, I don't know if I should send them a message or something like that, but you just want to learn more about how people use the platform. The follow button is really helpful.
That's interesting because isn't there like a limit on the number of people you can link with? So that's just another way that you could, even if they've maxed out on the number of links, you can still see what their content is. That's really interesting.
Yep. Yeah. So I use that sometimes as well if I'm just wanting to hit a quick follow and get some of their stuff on my feed.
Excellent. Well, I'm going to share my screen and do just a few program updates. Karina, you are welcome to continue to join us because I will talk about CVA if you want to share your experience with CVA. Or if you have other things to do, of course, we want to respect your time as well.
All right. I think, yeah, I'm going to hop off. I appreciate everybody. And it was great to see everyone. And thanks for the chat and engagement and hope to see you online.
Yes, thank you so much. Those are all my nieces and nephews. Sorry, everyone's seeing all those. Let's see, we're going to flip screens. Here we go. So real quick, I just have a few updates I want to make sure everybody knows about. So I've talked about this training quite a bit. This will be the last webinar that I talk about the Points of Light conference because it'll be over by our next webinar. But this is a volunteer engagement management conference that is worldwide. It's the largest volunteer engagement conference in the world. It is in Orlando, Florida. It's at Disney, so that's a bit of an expense if you want to go in person. I'm fortunate enough and super lucky and appreciative that I'm able to do the virtual option of the training July 13th to the 15th for only about $150. So that's definitely much more budget friendly for us. And the link, I'm going to send everything in a PDF so you can click on the link and get more information. It's a great conference, great way to network and see speakers from across the world. Like they have, I've seen speakers from Australia and England, Canada, you name it. It's a great conference with a lot of really good information and some inspiration I've found. We also have a state conference coming up. So this is for the Tennessee Federation for the Aging. So I know this is probably more geared toward our aging network base. And I know I'm thankful that we've been able to extend the series to individuals in the nonprofit sector, as well as continuing our aging network. But Tennessee Federation for the Aging is a statewide advocacy and education organization, and we have our conference coming up. I'm on the board and on the conference planning committee, so I will use we. Our conference is coming up October 25th to the 22nd in Pigeon Forge. There is no virtual option, so this is an in-person conference. So for those of you in West Tennessee, it is going to be a little bit longer of a drive than for us necessarily in Middle and East Tennessee. But our theme is bridging the gaps, working together for healthy aging. So it's going to encompass a whole lot of different things. Registration is not open until August, but it'll be about $180 for a 2.5-day conference for TFA members, and then about $130 for non-TFA members. So if you're interested, please let me know, and I will send you some more information on that. And then lastly, I want to talk a little bit more about CVA. So this is the Certified Volunteer Administrator credential. I have it. Rebecca, I believe, is on the webinar today. She has it. Karina had it. It's not a requirement by any means to be CVA certified, but it is the only, and people can correct me if I'm wrong, but really the only professional credential that volunteer administrators have. I've wanted it for years. I didn't have the courage. And then finally, in about 2020, I started studying for it and taking the exam, and I got certified in 2021. And really how, personally, I believe, how I was able to pass the exam is with the great, amazing study group that we put together. So Rebecca, Cindy, who's on the call, and a few others who aren't on the call with us. We started a study group. We generally met twice a month and just kind of talked all things volunteers. The Council for Volunteer Engagement, there's another C. Council for Certification in Volunteer Engagement, or in Administration. There we go, CCVA. They have a study hall, so we kind of stole their questions. We talked about it. We really had a lot of interesting discussions on some of the answers to the questions. But it was a really good way to kind of process through everything, get into a mind frame of best practices and not necessarily what we are or aren't able to do in our own kind of jobs. So if anyone is interested in joining the study group, and you do not have to apply to take the exam to be part of the study group, if you just want to talk twice a month about volunteer engagement with some other volunteering engagement nerds, we're going to start the group again on July 22nd. That is a Friday. We usually do the morning meetings at 9 a.m. Central Time, 10 a.m. Eastern Time. Depending on how many people we're able to get in the group, if there's a better time, we can always adjust that. But like I said, we generally meet twice a month until it gets closer to that testing window. Then we will kind of maybe meet weekly just to make sure everyone feels prepared and ready to take the exam. If you don't know much about CVA, and I'm not an expert on CVA, I've taken the exam, but all the nitty gritty, there are information sessions coming up July 12th and August 1st, and you'll have the link there that you can learn more about the CVA. And if you are interested in taking the exam, they do have a window from October 1st to October 14th, and the fee is $350. No fee to join the study group, and again, no obligation to take the exam in order just to come hang out with us and talk about volunteer stuff. Oh, we had a comment come in about the conference, the Points of Light conference. Bart it was slightly disappointed to see that the in-person workshops aren't broadcasted to the virtual audience. Yeah, I was a little, yeah, upset's a good word about that. So it is going to kind of be two different things. So in-person attendees for the Points of Light conference will get different information than the virtual, with the exception of, I believe, kind of the main plenary sessions where it'll be, I think, broadcast possibly live. Maybe Rebecca, you can correct me if I'm wrong on that one. But still, yeah, just like Rebecca said in the chat, it's still going to be a really great selection of speakers. And who knows, maybe one day next year, maybe some of us here in Tennessee will head over to Points of Light and present on an international platform. That would be awesome. So if you're interested in joining our study group, please let me know. I'll send it in the follow-up email to kind of gauge people's interest. And then lastly, I just wanted to remind everyone that our next webinar in the series is going to be Thursday, July 21st, same time, hopefully same place for you. And I'm going to be talking about something that I think I can actually correlate a lot of what Corina talked about today into this session, session of succession planning, preparing for future volunteer engagement coordinators. So this is going to kind of encompass how we need to plan for, we're going to retire, and maybe some of us will win the lottery, or other job opportunities may come and we may leave our current positions. So that way we have a plan in place for a new volunteer engagement coordinator that comes in after us, and then building our personal brand, getting on LinkedIn and getting, or if that's what you want to do, no requirements, of course. But getting our information out there so people want to work for us. Like, holy cow, Sydney and Rebecca and Cindy and Drew and Susan and everybody is hiring a volunteer coordinator. I want to work with them so they can see kind of what we're doing. It's going to be really interesting. Kind of a different, like I mentioned earlier, a different take for the series, kind of different topics, not specifically thinking about volunteers solely, but more thinking about ourselves and kind of the future of our programs. So taking the series in a little bit different direction, but I think it's all really good information to have. So with that, feel free to unmute yourself and open up for any conversation. Here's my contact information. Please feel free to reach out anytime. Always happy to help when I can. And thank you all again for participating in the series. Almost said conference. And we look forward to seeing you next month. And I'm going to figure out how to stop sharing my screen. Here we go.